protecting our community is worth a shot. Vaccines can help protect you, your family, and our community. Stop by James Drugstore today.
And welcome back to Group Therapy, a special edition of the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and once a week I sit down with my fellow editors and we talk about what's going on in Livingston Parish. So I'm going to let these two gentlemen introduce themselves real quick. We're going to start on my right.
This is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor at the Livingston Parish News.
And dear Rob was on vacation last week. We had a little bit of fun at his expense, but we're glad to have him back in the booth this week. So first and foremost, we're going to start off with David. We're going to talk about the thing that's kind of it's surging and it really is dominating headlines at the moment, and that is COVID, specifically the Delta variant. Last was it? God, time's flying. I believe it was the end of last week when we got the advisory that masks should be worn, and not long after that, we kind of got not long before that, we found out from the parish of Livingston that at least the governmental offices would be closed. That included the cancellation of the parish council meeting last week. So, David, tell us a little bit about that, because there are some offices that are not closed. I know there was some confusion there.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, the Delta variant is surging. This is this is Thursday the 29th. God, my days are confused. And yesterday, the state reported 1,500 hospitalizations, or more than 1,500, which that hadn't happened since the end of January, which was when we were coming down from the worst surge that we had since the start of the pandemic. So right now it's going in the opposite direction of where we're wanting to go, and it's not really an ideal time because you have schools and universities starting in a couple weeks. So so in the next couple weeks there could be, who knows what the guidelines are going to be for reopening schools. But yeah, I mean, basically right now the Governor Edwards and the Department of Health are recommending people wear masks indoors. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, doesn't matter. That's what they're recommending. We'll see if that changes in the next couple of days. Like I said, we are this week on Tuesday, I believe it was the most cases in a new day since January, or excuse me, most new cases in a day since January. The Governor and Department of Health also put out a statement that day. There was also 169 new hospitalizations that day. So yeah, it's getting worse right now, and really Livingston Parish is kind of one of the it's seeing the biggest surge it's had. I mean, 2 days within the last week, the parish has set new records for most new cases. It was 243 last week, and then on Tuesday, I believe it was 311. So I mean, it's in here, it's getting bad, which is also that's what prompted parish president Leighton Ricks to close the offices due to staffing issues. Saying that a lot of either staff employees are either getting COVID or they're going into the COVID protocols, being exposed to a positive case. So doesn't really bode well, and especially in Livingston Parish, where the vaccination rate is lower than the statewide average, which is also lower than the national average. So as of right now, the government offices are closed. Office of Motor Vehicles location in Livingston Parish is closed. Right now, the sheriff's office, the courthouse, and the clerk of court's office are not closed. They remain open. They have temperature checks. They have masks available. They're not closed at the time, but that could also change by tomorrow. So as of right now, it looks like things are maybe heading back to where they were a few months ago. I mean, it was just in May, I believe, that was when I was on my vacation, whenever the mask mandate was lifted. So, that looks like that might be the next step. Can't really say for certain. The governor keeps his those decisions pretty close to the chest until he announces them. So, but this is Thursday. He should likely have a press conference on Friday, and then we'll get more information then.
So we'll be waiting for that update that should be coming tomorrow. Also, in some unfortunate news, we had some more issues on the Amite River in the tiki tubing area, which has kind of it's created a bit of a stir around tiki tubing. Of course, it's been especially dangerous this year because for what seemed like 2 months straight, it rained quite a bit every day.
Yeah.
So the water's been high. It's been very difficult. Tell us a little bit about the most recent incident.
Well, no, this was on Saturday around 11 a.m. A gentleman from Livingston Parish died. That was the second fatality in the Amite River after launching from Tiki Tube, and in about 6 weeks. The other one people remember was the father of an LSU baseball pitcher. And then the weekend before this most recent passing, there was 15 people that had to be rescued by first responders from Central Fire Department, Livingston Parish Fire Department. They had these 15 people that got stranded because the currents were so strong. So yeah, I mean, but like me and you talked about last week, the parish's hands are kind of tied with this. They've talked with their attorneys, you said, and they just, there's no legal way that they could, I guess, tell this business to shut down, even though, these, it seems like these situations are just kind of piling up on top of each other right now.
Yeah, they continue to happen. And a lot of times there might be one incident during the summer after a particularly heavy rain or something like that.
I don't remember any last year either. I mean, granted, last year we were on kind of lockdown, so
right.
that probably had played into it.
It was very dry last year. I do remember that. I remember especially in the spring. It kind of helped with COVID because people could get outside.
Yeah,
because it was dry. It was very nice. But yeah, this year a lot of heavy rain. Higher river makes for a more dangerous scenario.
And you don't realize how strong the current is below that top. I mean, that's basically what's happening is these people are jumping over and just getting swept away in the current. They don't realize how fast or strong that current is until you're in it.
Right, and more water means more movement. A lot of people. That's a huge warning, especially. I mean, you can't really compare the two. They are both rivers, but that is a huge warning that goes around the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand just how fast that water is moving. So it's always it gives you a new appreciation when you see those boats going upriver. That's a lot of horsepower.
Yeah.
To move those. So, okay, Rob, we're gonna jump over to you now. Give Mr. Gray a break. You were on vacation last week, but a couple of things coming up. I know you there. Going to be some more stories coming out as you catch up with these folks. But I know you recently had another signing. Didn't you say that? They just never stop.
We've had so many just from the end of last school year to now, and they're still happening. So it is keep paying attention. We're working on them, trying to get them as fast as we can. Had a trio of Live Oak guys signing in either soccer or wrestling, and we kind of caught up with them. Got that one going, and we're working on some more stuff. Just keep paying attention, man.
Gotcha. Anything else you'd like to add before we?
I had talked with Emma Hutchinson, I think, before I went on vacation, and she just kind of catching up with her, after her freshman season at Louisiana Tech, and it was just good to sit down with her and kind of see what's going on, and where things have gone for her. I think a big thing for her was just kind of a growth period for her, not just in playing softball, but just becoming a better person. And she said a lot of what happened for her was going to Ruston and her family's real close knit. Rusty Hutchinson is the assistant principal there at Holden, and she said I go from a situation where I've basically been in school with my parents, since I was in kindergarten, to not having them there. And then but she said they pretty much made every game, which made it a little bit more bearable. And she said even games she didn't pitch in, they were there.
Oh, that's good.
A tough part of it was, she said, was with the COVID restrictions. Sometimes they would play the games and she couldn't even, it was waving to them from a distance
right.
Instead of being able to go and give hugs or whatever. But as it started kind of relaxing themselves, it got a little better. But she said a big part of it was having her parents and her family there. And she said they would bring, one sibling at a time. So she got to see, her brothers and things like brothers or sisters, however they would get it done. But it was, for her, it was more about growing as a person than as a softball player, and just kind of figuring things out. They went through a coaching change where, they had an interim coach, and now they've got a new coach coming in, and she says she's really excited about that.
Well, good. And again, keep paying attention. I know you'll be catching up with a lot of these Well, not necessarily. I do
We're-
believe the summer is over.
Man,
We're about to get
we're
to the
on it.
behemoth
Yeah.
David and I
football.
David and I were talking earlier today. So it basically cranks up next week for softball and volleyball. So
Football.
that's
Said
Foot-
softball.
oh, did I say softball?
Well, you were just talking about Emma Hutchinson.
Football,
so
volleyball. It's all going to crank up.
cross
Football.
country, swimming,
Yeah.
all that's coming.
It's all cranking up. It's time. It's like you said, summer's.
Didn't you say
what
practices start next week?
They should be starting next week, I believe.
Yep.
So
And school begins 2 weeks from yesterday. It's pretty
Yes.
wild.
it's here.
Pretty
It's upon
wild.
us.
So we think.
Yeah,
Who
we'll
knows?
we'll see what happens.
Just wait.
There is a school board meeting next week. I believe Mr. David Gray will be there. We're not
Yes.
sure. We're expecting some guidelines for this upcoming year, but it may not happen. Things change.
Expecting, yes. We'll see.
So, also, speaking of schools, going into the Albany area, we're going to talk about the Hornet Academy in just a minute. But I want to stay with sort of the high level school board business for a second. It was recently announced that the school board had acquired land in the Albany area
Mm-hmm.
for a potential new facility. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that was purchased. It's actually purchased back in June, but it's a multi-step process that they have to follow. It was back in February when the school board approved purchase of the land. Then they have to go through all the process of getting the land appraised, all that, and then they finally finalized it in June. But basically, it is about 20 acres in Albany, about a mile and a half north on just off of Highway 43 from where the current high school and elementary schools are, and this is basically what school board member Devin Gregoire, who represents the Albany schools, he's basically hoping that this new 20 acres can be the site of a new school. The Albany district is growing very fast. He said that in the next year or two, this is going to be 300 new housing units there. He also said that the Albany, which is currently a 3A school, could possibly move to 4A in the next couple of years. So there is a lot of growth there, and this measure is more of a preemptive measure because he seems pretty certain at some point they're going to have to do something, expand, get new buildings there. This is to help make sure, basically to have that set up for when they would need to expand. So the idea is to make a new upper elementary school. Currently, Albany lower and upper elementary schools right next to each other, but this would basically you would have a new upper elementary school, and the current upper elementary school would be able to have some of those buildings used for the lower elementary, and then you would also take away the fifth graders from the current middle school and put them at the upper elementary and give the middle school more room to expand. I know that's a lot of that's really kind of confusing, yeah. But basically, you would have one new campus, and then the other schools would be able to take over some of the what would then be vacant parts of the current configuration. So that is kind of what school board member Devin Gregoire has in mind. He's going to present there's going to be a sales tax proposal and bond proposal on the next ballot in November, and he's going to present these at the next school board meeting on August 5th. It'll be a public meeting. People will be able to voice what their thoughts on that. But yeah, so it's kind of the gist of what they're hoping to do in Albany. I know a lot of people were commenting that what about a new school in Denham, a new high school? But this is same people aren't going to be voting on that. So this is separate. This is just for those people in Albany. And from what the comments I read from people in Albany, this is something that at least the one, like I said, the ones that I read, they're looking forward to, because they don't want to get back to that situation where you have to have the temporary buildings on campus to fit the students, basically.
Sure, and it is important to note, because I saw some of those comments too. We saw a lot of that in terms of people saying, well, what about a school here? What about a school there? When we were discussing the post-flood shift and finding funding in the Denham Springs area, it's important to note that while the school system encompasses all 44 school sites, 46 total school sites in the parish, that each one of these has their own funding sources and things of that nature as part of their tax base. So it's these individual districts which vote on these things. So that's important to remember. It sounds to me like after that, Albany kind of learned. So it'll be interesting to see what happens back here in the Denham area, especially since they just recently chose the millage that was used to fund Jubin Park Junior High and Elementary to build new facilities on Denham High campus. Much needed in terms of sports facilities, but high school may come. We have discussed also that the school board does have land on 4-H Club Road, South 4-H Club Road, and a place called Nickens Lake. It is currently a subdivision, but they have land in front of that subdivision, which eventually they are hoping to build a high school on. Who knows when that'll be? Again, who knows? We'll see. Next, we want to stay in the Albany area, and we want to talk about kind of an interesting twist on the summer school type programs. It's called Hornet Academy. You got to go out there, kind of see what those kids were doing, talk to some of the teachers. Tell us about that.
No, that was a 2-week summer, basically a summer school session for Albany kids. They opened it up to kids in all grades, and it was another thing that the school board member Devin Gregoire had in mind. He reached out to one of the teachers, Louis Sandovich, I believe his name was. I know I probably butchered that last name, but he is actually the Albany High's teacher rep for the Livingston Parish Teachers Association that was formed last year, back last year in October. And he's also the representative for the Albany schools. So that's who Devin Gregoire reached out to when he had this idea, just to kind of help students with the last year with starting in a hybrid way, and then going back to a more traditional learning, and then some students being virtual the whole year. There were some learning deficits, not and Devin Gregoire pointed out that it's not as bad here as it is in other parts of the country, but there's going to be learning deficits just based on that kids weren't able to be in school full time. And so he wanted to kind of help help I guess go back over some of the material that they might have missed, and then also prepare them for the upcoming school year. So this was, he said it was covered under the ESSER funding, which is the federal funding that school districts received, to address COVID-related issues, and this would fall under that category of a COVID-related issue, trying to do some remediation and preparation for the next school year because of, COVID. So they basically had 2 weeks of, they were there from 7:30 in the morning until 1:45 in the day. So, I mean, basically, a school day, but the classes were much smaller. I mean, maybe some classes had 10 kids. So the learning was probably even more than they would get in a regular school setting, because you had more focused, more individualized learning. And one teacher said that the gains that they got in 2 weeks would have been 2 months in a regular school year. Just because you have less people, it's more laid back. You can focus more. Students have chances to ask more questions. They took a pre-camp test and then a post-camp test, and that's where the Mr. Lewis, he said he hadn't really looked at all the data, but one teacher did tell him that the gains were in a shorter time were more than they would have been in a longer time during a regular school year. So it's something that they're trying to make an annual thing every summer, and who knows, maybe other schools in the district or areas in Livingston Parish will pick up on that, because it seemed like it was something that was definitely needed, especially after the last year. And like we said, who knows how this year will be.
Now, you may have said this, but what were the age groups for that?
It was all
grades. All groups.
Open to all. It was free to students, and they also received a free breakfast and lunch like they would in a regular school year. They also had buses. The bus systems were going for that. So, I mean, it was pretty much like a regular school day. I mean, it was a little shorter, obviously. One of the teachers joked that, because she teaches at the lower elementary school, and they don't start until 8:30, and this academy started at 7:15. So she was getting there at 6:30. So she's like, dang, it was an earlier start for me. I'm getting up at like 5:30 in the morning. But, I mean, at the same time, they got off a little earlier, so it was a little nice. But I mean, it's also getting kids in, some of them, they had the teachers from the previous school year, and then some of them had teachers that they would have this school year. So, I mean, it just seemed like a nice way to just kind of get students reacclimated to getting up in the morning, getting ready to go to school, put on the uniform, I mean, so it, like I said, something that other schools might want to consider doing in future years.
And I just want to clarify, you did say Louis Sansevich, correct?
Sansevich.
My God. I covered Louis when he was a quarterback for Albany High.
Yeah, Louis Sansevich. I said that right. So,
he's
yeah.
a good dude.
Yeah, he is. He's a good kid. Interviewed him several times. God, that was like 12 years ago. Anyway.
Well, there you go.
Hey, you're still not older than me.
Yeah, well, okay, fine. Hey,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Well, it does sound like a good program.
Yeah.
And David, we appreciate you going out there to cover that. So please remember that school is kicking off here in just a little bit. 2 weeks from yesterday, which would have been Wednesday, July 28th. School kicks off Wednesday, August 11th. And, of course, football, cross country, swimming, and volleyball about to start up too. So school is here, folks. Please remember there will be a school board meeting next week. And as you heard, not just COVID, but also a bond issuance. So it's going to be packed. Going to be a lot going on at that school board meeting. So we appreciate everybody out there joining us for this edition of Group Therapy. Going to let these guys introduce themselves as we head on out. So Rob, let's start with you.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond. I'm the sports editor at the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there joining us and listening. Appreciate these two guys taking the time to sit down and discuss what's going on. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.